Yeah, for sure. All right. Hi, Bill. Nice to see you. Nice to meet you.
Hey.
After all this time of on and off agains. And
Yeah, yeah, I know. We had a minute or two, but scheduling is scheduling. It's the hardest thing in the world. Look
yeah,
at bands trying to go on the road. It's the same thing.
right.
Somebody's got to schedule it. You know what I mean? Thank God it's
And
not me.
reschedule. Well, I got to thank Sean O'Donnell for making this happen, and thank you
Sean is
for
great, and Imagine Records has been so cool to me. I mean, they've done more than any of the big record labels I've been involved in. That I can't remember talking about my music that much on any of these labels that I've been on. And I've been on Elektra, I've been on uh, Capitol, I've been on a lot of that, and I never had this much attention. Shauna's been awesome. She's just great. Love her.
it's interesting you bring up Elektra because Cheap Trick was on Elektra Records for decades,
Yeah.
and they said the same thing. They got very little promotion. They're with a new label. I can't remember who they're with now, but they're finding the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's finding the same thing. I think that a lot of the big record labels, they're doing well from what I understand. At least their stock is doing well. But I think it used to be that they would have a big artist that they're selling at the moment,
Yeah,
but they would be working a bench.
right.
Basically, they would be helping to develop the next artist to come along, which I thought was a really cool thing. So when the big artist kind of starts to go down a little bit, they got somebody else they can hop in with. And I don't think now they're doing. I think all the eggs are in one basket pretty much. So, and I think in a lot of ways, unless you're, 15, you're not going to get much. They're really aiming for one audience. A lot of what
Yeah,
modern music is doing, which is fine because I think that's where probably where the most money is for them, and I understand that. You need to keep your stockholders happy, but I mean, there's a lot. I think a lot of indie records, like mine, for instance, are sometimes got better music. Not always, but sometimes.
well, and how does that work for somebody like you in the longevity that you've had? Because you can go, hey, I'm Bill. I've got all this year, all this year power. You could boost your ego and kind of do that whole song and dance.
Well,
But in the end of the day, it
yeah,
doesn't really work out that well.
doesn't work out that well. That's one of the reasons why I'm really, really happy with everybody at Imagine Records: Bob Weingard, Steve Nathan, Shauna O'Donnell. I mean, they have been on the case, and the way I've always thought of promoting a record should be. They've just been great. Yeah, I mean, I can't speak highly enough about them. I mean, we're Bob, when he talked to me about doing this, he wasn't all that interested in doing CDs,
Yeah.
touchable copies, And I said, hey, can I just do them? He said, yeah. So we've got CDs available at billchamplin.com/shop. Pretty simple. So, I mean, we're trying to do it all every way we possibly can. And we're at this point in the game, it's catching what a friend of mine called catching air. We're catching some air. We might actually get off the runway and get up into the air. We're hoping for it.
But with that longevity comes skill that a lot of the youngsters just haven't got. Like in terms of prowess. I mean, the people that you have playing backing you up on this album,
Yeah.
including yourself backing yourself up
Oh
vocally.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I played
You've got your
most of the rhythm guitar, and except for two songs, all of the Hammond B3 on the record. I did a lot of keyboard bass with sounds like either a Moog kind of sound or a bass patch kind of thing. And I just, I could have replaced some of the bass things, and I just kind of didn't because they were grooving really hard. And then I got really great drummers on the record. That to me, I mean, I said to somebody one time, is the drummer's job is to excite the singer, whose job it is to excite the audience.
ah,
It's
I
as
like
simple
that.
as that. Yeah, it's just a direct line from there to there, especially with any kind of R&B or funk music or rock and roll. That groove has got to be there. And I think this album, I got it. Got it. It's not real fast. It's not up in your face. But and I know the title "Living for Love" sounds like it's going to be nothing but ballads, but wrong. It
Oh
isn't.
no.
Not by a long
It's
shot.
a it's a smooth transition throughout the entire record.
Yeah.
It just it's real easy going. It's fun. It's
Right.
energetic. Like the song "Hey," like it's
Yeah.
just hey. You know, you say that to your neighbor when you're walking out of the house, right? Like,
Hey, what you
hey,
doing?
how's it
Yeah.
going?
Hey, exactly. In other words, damn it, listen to me. I could have said that, but I only had one syllable. So we went with hey. Actually, Gary kind of came in with the vibe, Gary Falcone, who was a member of Wonderground also, but we were, we've co-written a lot of stuff together. And he just kind of went, well, we can just go one, hey, it's dabo, 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 dab. And I just went, well, just keep hey. What the hell? Tamara said, works for me, so let's go. So we could, it's, when you're songwriting, sometimes something hits you you weren't planning on when you started to write the song, but it goes, hey, that's cool. Let's go with that. So you got to write decent songs, or especially to co-write, you got to be mutable. You got to go if something better comes up than you thought you wanted, go with it, and it's kind of been the rule of thumb, at least for me and Tamara. And Tamara and I write awful lot of music together.
Right.
Yeah.
And she was on here too.
Oh, she's all over the place. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's done almost all. She was singing with me on, I'd say, just about all the backgrounds of the record. There was one or two tunes where I think there was Too Good to Be True, or Too Good for Too Long, and My Time, were actually me and Andreas Carlson, who's a dear friend of mine from Sweden, who's a big songwriter, great, just a great musical entity. I've known him since he was a kid, and it was so great to have him involved in the record, because he's just, man, this guy can sing. He's and a great songwriter. I mean, he co-wrote a lot of those Britney Spears things and Backstreet Boys, and he was working in Sweden when all that stuff was really coming through hard.
Oh, okay.
So he wrote a lot of songs with Max Martin. He wrote "That's the Way It Is" for Celine Dion, and he's been around for a long time. So I love writing with him, but more than anything, I love singing with him, because the guy can sing his brains out. I'm trying to talk him in. I know, Andreas, you're an entrepreneur, and he owns universities around the world, and he's just an insane guy, entrepreneur from the word go. But he hasn't had an album in a long time, and I'm going, come on, Andreas, let's get you in front of the microphone. People don't really understand how good you are. What I mean? So I do, and I get him on every record I can. You know what I mean?
Well, and that's incredible, because you've got a lot of well-versed talent on here, like I mentioned, but you've got like Lenny Castro on percussion.
Oh, absolutely. He's the best.
Yeah.
Him and Luis Conte are like the screamers of the percussion world. Lenny worked with Toto for almost their whole career,
Right.
Up until lately, and then he was with Joe Bonamassa for a lot. I mean, they did a tour of just Lenny and Joe. That was it. I saw it on television. I went, wow, look at this. It's just Joe and Lenny. It's this real funky looking club called the Vienna Opera House. Not exactly an upholstered sewer, if you know what I mean. Nice little nightclub you guys are playing in. And it was just great to hear him. I mean, he's just a sweetie pie, Great music. We got Steve Porcaro on one song, and I've worked with him on and off over the years, and anything that I get him on, he makes it way better. He's just a screamer,
Yeah, and the sax solo that takes out The Truth Has Begun, that's just some incredible.
Yeah, right there at the tag, the plot sickens. Did you notice?
Yeah.
Mark Russo he played with the Sons for a little while with my band, Sons of Champlin.
Yeah.
He's just an amazingly great sax player. Played with, I think, one of the first one or two versions of Yellow Jackets back in the day.
Oh, okay.
Plays with the Doobie Brothers. Whenever they play, he's the guy that they throw solos to.
Nice.
Mark, and he's a sweetie pie. He's a great musician. And I just went, I gotta get this going. I mean, I had vocals on the tag of Truth Has Begun. And at some point I went, I erased some of them, and I just went, I'm going to do one round of the chorus, and then I'm going to let this go a long time. Mark, have your way with it in the biblical sense. And he just made it just crazy. He's just such a great musician. Monstrous player.
Well, what a great way to end off the track too. Like it just takes out the track,
yeah.
Right?
Well, I mean, I'm kind of known for especially with Sons and stuff like that, for what they call blowing records where there's a lot of playing going on. And at the same time, I'm known for writing songs and singing. So I think in some ways this album really kind of did that crossover pretty well. There's some blowing. There's definitely some solos here and there. I took a few of them on guitar. I think and one on organ. But we got some. There's a few things. Gary Falcone played a solo that was great. Carmen Grillo played a solo that was great. On the song "Hey," Tal Morris tore it up. His soloing on that was that's a badass solo.
It is.
People don't know who he is. He played with his Sons for a while, and then right after that, he was out for I don't know how many years with Creedence Clearwater Revisited. Everybody but John Fogerty.
Yeah.
So he's a really great musician and a good pal. So I try to get people that I know and like on the record, and that's somebody said to me years ago, "Is the best records are made by a few good people having fun." And I went, "Yeah, I'm in there." The same guy told me, it's Mike Stewart. He co-produced Billy Joel's first couple albums, or he produced them, and he said, "Remember, the first thing that goes to tape when you're singing is who you are and how you feel. After that, time, intonation, all the book learning stuff,
Oh, okay.
But and I kind of took that to heart, and I would try to put my heart and soul into vocals. I didn't allow myself to sing lead vocals the same day I did backgrounds.
Right.
It's two different art forms, really. So, if I did it on the same day, I'd end up just doing yet another background track. Well, there's track 7. Where's the lead? What's on track 7? Nah, it's not going to work. Anyway, like that.
Because one has to follow the other, and it has to be in a different octave. Is that correct?
Well, even if I'm singing the same melodies that are happening on the background track, I really like to put a little more, let it hang over sometimes where the backgrounds are clipped and like that, and different things like that. It just makes it sound like it's real, like it's really happening. So,
right.
And that's that's kind of once again kind of an art form that Mike Stewart taught me. He says sometimes having them not dead on perfect together makes for a better sounding record somehow. Makes it more real. So I've learned a lot from the people that I work with. I mean, David Foster, come on, give me a break. I learned a lot about doing vocals, as well as, and he learned a lot about me. I was his vocal ringer for quite a few years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was the guy he would bring in to do backgrounds or whatever, and I learned a lot about not so much the what, but the where. This is where we can put something here. We can make something happen right here.
Just tweak it to make it a little bit.
Just tweaking it to make it a little bit better. I mean, I had a single off my second album with David called Sarah, and he was producing the vocal on that. It's as good a vocal track as I've ever done. I mean, but you're in Canada. You know all about David.
Oh yeah.
He's bad to the bone. I love him. He's a sweetie pie. He's a good guy.
I don't know him personally. I mean,
he's let's put it this way. He's most of the time he's busier than a one-arm paper hanger with the crabs,
That's an interesting term.
It's an interesting, or a one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest. But I mean, that's how busy David is. It's always been that way. It's just he just works all the time, and he's so very cool at it. I mean, right before the pandemic and everything, he was going out playing live gigs, and Jay Graydon and I went to a show up in Westlake, California, or Thousand Oaks, just 10 miles from here. And it was just really enjoyable. It was really, really cool. He just had 4 players on the stage, him and 3 other guys, and then a handful of singers that were all of them ridiculous, just as good as it gets. It was a very, very cool show.
Yeah, I can imagine.
As soon as this virus stuff, as soon as we can, if we can get this vaccine out to as many people as possible, I think we got a shot at curbing this virus thing and getting back to some semblance of normal.
How much do you miss playing live? Because you've been playing live for so long. I guess it's like breathing for you.
Driving me crazy. We did one. I've sat in with a band on a live gig maybe 2.5, 3 months ago.
Right.
And I was going, I don't know if I can still do this, but they sat me in a B3 Hammond organ on the stage with a microphone in front of me, and about one bar I went, oh yeah, this is riding a bike. I got this down. Thank you very much. But in some ways, I don't think, had it been for the pandemic, I don't know if I'd have done this album. I'd have been,
Oh,
you
okay.
know, caught up in doing a million other things. But at some level, you know, I got the Pro Tools rig. I was, you know, writing, actually what turned out to be the title tune, Living for Love. And Tamara walked in and she said, what's that? And I just said, well, check it out. What do you think? You know, and I pretty much had it written, you know, maybe I still needed a verse or something. I just played a little bit of it for her with just one acoustic guitar and me. And she said, Bill, time for a solo album. You got to do it. You know, we can put the Wonderground stuff away until another time, but you're smoking, you know, every time you go in and program something and put something together, it's just getting better and better and better. Get it on a record as soon as you can. So I listen to her. She's got a lot of insight that I don't really have. I'm just too, I don't know, frazzled most of the time to see what's going on, even in my own life, you know,
But
kind of the way it is.
that's great to have that feedback.
Well, it's cool. First of all, she's my wife and has been for 39 years, and I love her to death. But she's really, really got a good eyeball on what makes things tick musically, on things, you know. And she kind of keeps me up. And if we're driving around, she'll just put it on a music station that I you know, that I normally wouldn't listen to, and go, "What do you think of this?" I'm going, "Wow, there's some cool stuff out there." You know, I mean, we were watching TV and a group called Fallout Boy was doing a show in Mexico somewhere. And
Right.
I was going, that singer is doing about 2.5 hours right in his sweet spot, singing hard like crazy. And he's not losing any of it. Man, this guy's he's got US Steel stamped on his pipes, you know? And occasionally, you know, and I'm a Foo Fighters fan from the word go. I mean, I kind of rediscovered AC/DC 4 or 5 years ago. A
Right.
little latecomer to that world. And lately I'm just kind of going, wow, Tchaikovsky's a pretty good orchestrator. And man, I'm digging Beethoven. So I think what kind of happened is, you know, instead of just getting caught up in motion and doing stuff, this pandemic and everything kind of put me back into really kind of enjoying all kinds of different music.
Sure.
And that can't be bad. That can't be a bad thing. So damn good time killer, I'll tell you that.
Right.
Because what are you gonna do? You know, I mean, in California, we are locked down. There's no restaurants open. I guess you can get takeout at most of them, but they don't even have outdoor dining in California. It's just down for the count, just completely down for the count.
Restaurants and bars are open here, and liquor stores.
Yeah, I hear
Movie
you.
theaters are closed though, so go figure.
You know, there's really no rhyme or reason, and I don't think, in terms of the science, there's always going to be two ideas about what's going on. You'll hear one doctor say, "You don't need that mask," and you hear another one say, "You got to have it." So yeah, I'll wear the mask. You know, I don't want to sing with it because it sounded like Kenny on South Park. But think of the money I'd save on Dolby.
Right.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But I mean, we're everybody's living with it. I think the fact that there's no live music it's just wrong. It's just, there's something so wrong about it. Music is, I mean, I think at some level with everybody with this 6 foot social distancing, the only touching you get is music.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
exactly.
I mean, they were talking, somebody was saying a couple of years ago, they were saying that, you know, say somebody in your family's in the hospital, one of the things that's going to cure them is palliative care, which is you and the rest of your family being there touching them.
Exactly.
Not allowed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, half of your cure is being, you said you can't do it, you know, and I kind of understand. I mean, if it's something real contagious, nasty virus is going on, then people are trying to keep from letting it get bigger and bigger. But, you know, California has been really following the rules, and the numbers seem to just keep going up. So I don't know. My son Will was diagnosed positive 2 weeks ago. He had a cough for a day and a fever for a day, and he's been fine. You
Well,
know.
that's good.
So
Glad
yeah, he's great. Now he's negative. Everything's fine, and we're swinging along. He was double masked in the house, you know, because he lives in the guest house along with the studio and stuff. So
Oh, okay.
yeah. So we're pretty close. Anyway, we've just slipped off into virus land. As you'll see, I'm pretty good at tangents.
Okay.
That's how I write songs. Just let's
I
go on this trail for a while. You know what I mean? Oops, I'm lost in the forest now. Somebody call the forest ranger. It's just the way
Those
I
have been
am.
let go, so you're on your own.
I'm telling you, yeah, right. But you better have your pipes and help. Somebody may hear you. Classic.
How did your songwriting process work? A lot of musicians I've talked to in the past, or even now, they sometimes write the music first, or they sometimes write the lyrics first, or it's a combination of both. How's your
Usually,
process?
mostly I get something either on keys or guitar that's got a progression that to me sounds like something that hasn't been used all that much. There'll always be a section of the song that has a relatively non-threatening progression at some points of the song, but then it goes somewhere.
Right.
And if I'm cutting something, a lot of times I'll be just jamming at the piano, just going and just playing free. Whatever comes to mind just happens. And if I hit on something that's kind of really good, I'll kind of play it once or twice. And if I'm lucky, I'll have my telephone recorder nearby, or Tamara will just come around the corner and hit it.
Oh, okay.
I mean, she came. I was doing one right before we went to dinner. I was waiting for her to put on makeup or something, and I was playing this thing, and she just heard what I was playing and immediately hit the record. We went to dinner, and I came back and said, "I wonder what that was." She says, "Right here,"
Oh,
and saved my ass regularly doing that. Well, there's that. How about that piece? So and then usually at that point in the game, I'll try to throw a melody on it, see if something's going on, and then go after lyrics. That's usually the sequence. Occasionally, I'll get a lyric that I'll throw down. I might talk to Tom Kelly one time. He's written big records and big songs. He wrote True Colors with Cyndi Lauper and
right.
and Billy Steinberg, who's his co-writer. He said we always do lyrics first,
Oh, okay.
and then Tom's the kind of the musician and the player in that squad, and he puts together he gets the lyric and puts it together. And I think Elton and Bernie do it that way too. So there's a lot of different ways of doing it. I usually I'm not really inspired to write anything until I got something to write over. That's kind of the way I work usually.
You
But
get, you
it's
get that groove happening.
yeah, I need that little pocket. I need whatever's going on, or the chords, something in the what I'm playing that's just causing me to chase it further. If not, I'll just throw it away and come up with something else. I mean, sometimes I go to write and I don't get anything. I mean, many times. I mean, it's just well, I'm pretty much batting zero today. Let me try it tomorrow. And then the next day I'll get something that'll grab me, or I'll fool around at the piano. I mean, I wrote something with Dennis McCoskey one time, and and we said, let's write something that's absolutely not pop, not popular, and will be unable to have anybody cover it. And of course, that was a song that we had covered. So, you know, the one we ended up coming up with. So, I mean, there's no rhyme or reason. Well, there's got to be rhyme, and hopefully there's some reason. But there's, it's just a different thing. It's just you gotta know when it's going to happen. And I always figure that if you try it enough, if you keep, go to the piano regularly or go to the guitar regularly and try it, eventually something's going to come through you rather than something you came up with, something. So what you're doing really is you're working on your craft, and then art happens to you.
Oh,
And I think lyrically that's happened to me numerous times, not a lot. Sometimes, I mean, I'm pretty good at poetry, etc., and can put that stuff together, but occasionally there'll be a line that comes out that's just like, oh, that one's talking. And I don't remember even writing it. It just came through. There's a line in one of the songs on the record called a Stevie song, and the line is, "Music is the perfect path to love." And I just went, "Oh, wow, where did that come from?" I'm using it. I'm loving it. Wrote something years ago called "He Started to Sing," and I just I was just writing it, wasn't even paying attention to it, just doing something a little bit introspective with another song with Bruce Geich and his wife Janie Kluwer. And I wrote, "He started to sing of love just to find it." And I went, "Wow, that's cool. Let's just keep writing." And Tamara came out to the studio. This was years ago. And I said, "What do you think of that?" She said, "Oh my God, you just wrote what every singer does. You just nailed it." And he said, how'd you do that? You know, and she's an amazingly great lyricist, great songwriter.
Yeah.
I mean, she and I wrote a good portion of stuff on this album. We had Gary Falcone in there on some of it. She writes a lot with a guy named Michael Caruso, and they actually had something started that I got in on the music called Love Has No Heart. It's a really cool kind of almost gospel-y kind of thing on the record. It's a little different than some of the rest of the record. So, I mean, that's what I kind of like about the record is there's a sort of sets of different, you know, the way it's, and I've always thought that sequencing a record is kind of an art form in itself. Could you imagine Sergeant Pepper without Try It with a little help from my friends not being song number 2? That just
Right.
doesn't, you know, and when you think about it, it's like, who would put out a Beatle album and have a Ringo song be the second song? Because usually he's kind of the Yellow Submarine, Octopus's Garden. And, you know, he's kind of
He's the last track on the album.
yeah, something along that line. You know, I mean, they never gave him really the time of day that much. I mean, writing wise and singing wise, I think he's fine at it. He does well. But I mean, after the Sergeant Pepper's start, and then they set it up, and boom, there was a Try With a Little Help. It's like, wow, how cool is that? The one of the main what's so artistic about Sergeant Pepper is the sequencing from song to song is just brilliant. You know, really well thought out, and they're just, I mean, what can you say? The Beatles.
I know.
Hate those guys.
Well,
I hate those guys.
We had With and Without You from George as well, right?
Oh, I mean, George actually kind of came to the ball game a little late in the game. So I think Paul and John were so busy fighting with each other that George started flying through with, you know, While My Guitar Gently Weeps and something, you know, something in the way she moves.
Yeah.
McCartney said, God, I wish I'd have written that. So George started to really come to the ball game. I mean, I was listening to one of his solo records and it had When We Was Fab.
Yeah.
And I went, man, that's really cool. He said, yeah, it was produced by Jeff Lynne. And I went, that's why it's really cool. That guy's amazing. I mean, Jeff Lynne is just as good as it gets, you know, in terms of production and all that kind of thing. They did
Traveling Wilburys together as well.
Oh, how cool was that? You know what I mean? Right? How cool was that project?
Jim Keltner, like one of
my favorite drummers in the world. It's funny, I asked him one time, I said, Jim, where'd you get that kind of just on the back of the group? Not dragging by any means, but just as far back as you can get without dragging.
Yeah.
You know? And he said, well, I kind of really got that from 2 different drummers. The AC/DC's drummer, who kind of plays back here, and Ringo Starr. He said, people don't understand how good Ringo Starr is on drums. I think he's one of my favorite drummers because he's one of the first guys to just play for the song, you know, really play for the song, make the song important. So Ringo, I guess Jim had talked to Ringo, and I'm paraphrasing all this. It was a long time ago I had this conversation. And he said, well, you know, I heard him with Pete Best, and Pete chops up all kinds of chops, but he was up here. And he says, those songs are more important if you hold it back just a little bit. Then you're aware of what the song is instead of this caught in the momentum of a forward motion, dig my chops groove. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
too many fillers can kill a song sometimes.
Yeah, I mean at one time I said, man, the more monsters you have in your band, the more rehearsal you're going to need.
Yeah.
And every one of them's going to think, oh, I don't need to rehearse. I can nail this down. I said, no. It's not the way it's going to work. I mean, one reason why I really like Keith Olsen's production, any of his productions, is he could take a B flat band or a B minus band and make them sound like an A minus band. He spends time. It doesn't happen instantly, but there's something you get out of that you don't get out of hiring all the top guys in town, all the A cats. Yeah. What Foster said about the A cats. He asked me one time, he said, why are these A guys so good and they get it so quick? I said, they're lazy. He said, what do you mean they're lazy? I said, they want to get it done and get out of there, get out of the submarine and get out into the light, you know, into the sunshine, you know, while the sun's still shining. Let me knock this off beautifully and go, okay, we're done. I'm out there and still catch some light. It's just it's just a theory. It might be right, but who knows? Maybe education and real great reading ability and good charts and all that. It all helps a lot. I'm not much of a reader, so I just kind of, I pull it off whatever way I can. You know what I mean?
Right. But recording an album now is so different than when you recorded an album 15, 20 years ago, because everybody
Yeah.
could be in the studio at once. Right now, it's,
Yeah.
if you're doing studio work at all, you have to do it separately, or you're just getting tracks from somebody
Yeah.
from out of town, that sort
Yeah.
of thing. And you're
Well, in a way, I'm glad we have the technology to be able to do that.
right.
You know, I think Zoom is a pretty cool thing. Although I see bands playing stuff on Zoom live, and they're all in little square boxes. And I was expecting to hear, here's a story about a man named Brady. I expected, you know, and they could be playing the funkiest R&B in the world, but I'm going, this just keeps looking like the Brady Bunch. I'm sorry, it's just my weird little brain, you know. But you know, I mean, I miss the fact that being able to walk in the studio and hang with the other cats is really, it's just, there's just something so real about it. It's like what I was saying earlier. You don't get much touch when you're doing it online. And we did it this way. We kind of did it this way because we had to. And I think the challenge with making a record the way I've been making it, at least the way I made this one, the challenge is to try to make it really sound like a band. You know, no matter what you're doing.
You've
Yeah.
done that, Bill.
Oh, I played it for Greg Matheson, who was co-writing and played a lot of it. What if I had the mixes done and sent him the mixes, sent him the whole album? He said, "My God, Bill, it sounds like a band. It sounds like a really well thought out, well produced band." He said, "You nailed it," you know. And coming from Greg, that was as strong a compliment as I've ever gotten. I mean, he's a bad boy. I mean, he's a serious piece of work, you know.
I got to speak to Mark Farner a couple months ago.
Oh, he's great, isn't he?
Oh, he's fantastic.
He's a sweet. He's a bad boy too. He's seriously great musician, great singer, great performer. He's just something else. Yeah.
Could I ask him the same thing I'd asked you about performing live and how much he missed it? And he goes, "Well, you know, when you're performing live, you're 3 feet off the stage because the crowd's just on you.
Yeah.
They're elevating you to that higher level, and you know the music stops and the crowd's just cheering you on." He goes, "When I perform on here, the song's over,
dead." Yeah, I hear you.
Not the same.
I mean, some friends of mine in Las Vegas, Santa Fe and the Fat City Horns do a live thing on their website. It's kind of a Zoom thing of some kind at every other Monday night, and they're an amazingly great band. But their horn section has plexiglass between each player.
Right.
The singers are pretty far apart in front. Everybody's kind of on their own, in their own place on the stage, and it's great music. But I mean, you could tell they're kind of going. They're so used to playing for a full house.
Yeah.
Even if it's a small house. I mean, they've been playing Monday nights. Started off at the Palm, and now they're at a little like nightclub restaurant kind of thing, a little bit out of town, right, just a little bit back toward the airport. And they're, you know, he says, "Well, we're trying our best to try to stay in it. It's just what it comes down to, you know." And they're having guest artists and stuff. I'll probably go in and do one with them, but I think hopefully, I mean, my fingers are crossed so bad that my sloppy piano playing is even worse. Try playing like that, you know. Hey, it seemed to work for Thelonious Monk. I guess it might work for me. Who knows? But you know, I think the vaccines may put a crimp in this whole thing. I'm not sure what's going on with it, but you know, I'm gonna have to wake up at about 5 a.m. just to get an appointment for my vaccine, because it's not happening. I mean, it's just big. I mean, they're virtual, but there are long lines of people that are trying to get to it. Yeah. So, I mean, if it takes a little while, it takes a little while. I'm not going out running around breathing in anybody's face. I'm wearing a mask. I've used so much hand sanitizer that I think at some point of the game, my hands are going to be the size of a 3-year-old boy, you know. It's just got to start shrinking. Yeah. I remember I used to go to a lot of gigs to hear a lot of other bands, and they would stamp your hand with some kind of ink.
Yeah.
And I was going to write a song about a band guy that had so many ink stamps that he started getting cancer of the left hand. And I just couldn't put that one together. It seemed like a good idea, but maybe not, you know.
Maybe that song will come tomorrow.
I would love it to. It would sure be funny if it did. People wouldn't get it. I mean, sometimes I learned a long time ago, what's funny today may not be funny in 6 months. So don't put it on the album. Don't put it on the cover. You're going to go, what was I thinking anytime? So, I mean, sometimes the best thing to do is just do the record and don't try to be cute. Let's put it that way.
No, I love the diversity of it. I love the sound you've accomplished with this record.
Yeah. Well, you know, the drummer on 6 of the songs, 6 or maybe even 7 of the songs, is Alan Hurst, who mixed the record. He's a fine drummer. I mean, he played with Scott Henderson and Mike Landau and different people like that. He's a bad boy from the word go. Had a group called, dig this name, Garage Mahal.
Garage Mahal.
How cool is that? And it's kind of a jam-based sort of band, but they had like 7 or 8 albums. He lived up in Marin County, around in my old home area.
Right.
So whenever I would go up to do the Sons, we were practicing in one room, and Alan was like 3 doors down in another room, in like an industrial kind of area.
Right.
And you know, the Sons lost our drummer to melanoma in 14, I think 2014. And I think I just went down, just saw Alan. I said, dude, want to play with the Sons? He said, yeah, I'm in. Boom. So the next thing I know, he moves down to LA. He's like, lives 10 miles from me. He's got his drums. He's got his Pro Tools rig set up. So I went, man, this is great. I can get a drummer and a mix. One-stop shop, you know. I don't have to deal with any, and we're really close friends. And he's such a gas, one of the funniest human beings on the earth. So I work with him a lot. And I work with Carmen Grillo a lot in his studio. And Carmen does a lot of like smooth jazz stuff. He does East Bay funk and all those. He records a lot of stuff. He records a lot. He recorded all the saxes in what was that Summer Saxes album that came out for a while back with all kind of Mindy Abair and a handful of sax players. I mean, he records a lot of stuff. So I ended up doing a handful of drums. My Hammond organ is at his studio. So anytime I need to put real organ on it, I go over there. So, I mean, there was it's like what Mike Stewart told me years ago. It's just the best, a handful of good friends, and you got a good album on your hands. And that's kind of what this one came down to. I asked people. I mean, I'd never really worked a lot with Lenny Castro, but when I asked him about it, he said, "Great, bring me a drive. I'll bang it off at my house." And what am I going to do? Tell him, well, I want congas here and I want bongos there. And put this. I just went, it's yours. Take it. Here's the groove. Here's the click track. Here's where the pocket is. It's all yours. So he, in 2 different runs, he came in, knocked it out. I mean, knocked it out of the ballpark. He's such a good percussionist. It's unbelievable.
Well, in a sense, then, Living for Love is a great name of the album because you're essentially working with people that you love and respect.
Absolutely. I mean, having Greg Matheson we're doing 3 tunes with Greg Matheson. One of them, we got Abraham Laboriel to play bass on it. Wow. And Abe hasn't been doing a lot of sessions lately. And so, Greg and Abe are really, really close. And I've been a good friend of Abraham's for years. And he knocked one off. He's been kind of a little under the weather. So it was kind of hard for him to put it together, but he got the track, and his son Mateo engineered it. He knocked off a bass track on a song called Losing Ground. And I mean, God, he's great. You're talking Abe Laboriel. How lucky am I to have Abe Laboriel on one song and George Hawkins on one song? These are 2 of my favorite bass players ever. The first album I did that was co-produced with Greg Matheson was called Burn Down the Night. And the 2 bass players on that record were Abe Laboriel and George Hawkins. So yeah, full circle. We're right back to the go. You know what I mean? And everybody was, people have different situations. I mean, Mark Russo, the sax player, I just sent him the stuff in WeTransfer, and he just loaded it into he uses DP. Digital Performer. Yeah. He loaded it in, knocked the stuff off. When we mixed it, seemed like there were 1 or 2 places where he said, I think that going from DP to Pro Tools, some of this stuff is coming out a little bit latent. So you just pop it, make it a little, take it a little over. So we had to do a little of that. And that's what happens because it's these tracks started in Logic, went to my house in Pro Tools, went to Mark's house in Digital Performer, and back to my house in Pro Tools. There could be some stuff, in all that travel. Yeah.
Yeah.
You could have, you might have picked up a cold somewhere along the way, just sort of. But I mean, that's just the nature of doing it. And I just kind of went, I've done a little bit of this before. I'm not really great at it. I'm not really a great programmer or anything like that. But because when I go in, I don't do a lot of tricks.
Right.
I really like the songs to be, piano, organ, maybe a little bit of string stuff here and there, piano, organ, guitar, bass, drums. Thank you. Those are the instruments that I usually live with, and that's what I like to hear. So I think in that sense, it's an old school album. You know what I mean? Because the instrumentation is not like an EDM record. My son's got an Ableton rig, and he does a lot of EDM kind of music.
Right.
He's caught up in it, and it's musical. It's really great. It's just I don't really need some of those tricks. I mean, I'm
bells
just
and whistles.
yeah, I'm just going to kind of stick with the basics for me. I mean, it used to be you go to buy a synthesizer, and on the floor of Guitar Center, man, listen to this patch. It's just beautiful. You get home, try to use it, and it hangs over into your chord changes. You're going, I can't use it. What do you end up using? Piano, clavinet, Wurlitzer, organ. Pretty much it. You know what I mean? Maybe string things, maybe an occasional, synth thing here and there, but that's pretty much it. Or, anything else I can get from guitar. So I really like to lean on rhythm guitar a lot. I mean, that song, Hey, I mean, that's me on rhythm. It's pretty pumping, pretty decent.
Yeah, it's so catchy.
Yeah, it's got you in a groove, you know what I mean? Like I say, your lawn's about to die. Be careful. You're in wintertime anyway, your lawn's gonna die anyway. So I guess you're all right.
That's the thing that's nice about this album is it the raw. You're not using any studio tricks.
Yeah, it's straight
ahead. That computer programming, none of that vocal, what do they call it? The
auto-tune and vocal line. It's funny, a really great Pro Tools engineer that was a good friend that I knew in Nashville happened to be talking to me and Jason Sheff one day, and he said, so tell me, man, how did you tune the stuff when you were doing your solo record and all the David Foster sessions back when you were going to tape? How'd you tune it? And both of us just chimed in, we recorded it. Well, I know, but how did you tune it? We recorded it. He said, what do you mean? If it wasn't in tune, we did it again. He said, wow, that could take forever. Yep. That's the way it is. I mean, they had to redo the mother tape on Queen's records because they stacked so many vocals that it went around so many times that they started losing the backing on the tape. Oh, wow. So they had to make safety, knowing that they were going to stack that many vocals. It was mostly Freddie, and I think the drummer sings mostly really high stuff. Yeah. And they, from what I understand, they had to make safeties of all the original band tracks, and then bounce everything down onto those tracks, but keep them really pristine, not going around millions and millions of times.
Right.
Because stack up all that whole big operatic full choir stuff they did. Man, that was some musical stuff. It was so great. Sure. It was so great. I wasn't that into them, and all of a sudden I just listened closer and I went, holy smokes, these guys are kicking, man. They're not fooling around. This is using the studio to really make your art form come out the way you want it. Really cool.
Roger Taylor actually had a solo album come out back in the 80s. It was called Fun in Space. He did all the tracks, all the vocals, all the instruments.
Yeah.
It was a great album. Really out there as far away from Queen as he could get.
Yeah, really good drummer.
Really good drummer.
Just smoking drum. That rhythm section, their bass player looks like he works at the telephone company. Everybody else is rocked out. This guy's just, I'm in the pocket. That's
Yeah.
that's what he's there for. That's what he does. I love the guy. I couldn't even tell you the guy's name, but he's really like the unsung hero of Queen in a lot of ways. Man, he's just down.
Yeah, because everybody knows Brian May and Freddie Mercury, of course.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, and Brian May is one of my favorite guitar players. Him and who's the guy who plays with that was the leader basically of the forget the Gilmore. The guitar player Gilmore, what's his first name? I'm losing it. It's going away. I need more coffee.
Guitar?
Yeah, pardon me.
Not Steve Gilmore?
No. I'm sorry. I just had a brain fart. My brain just died. It just went away. I'm sorry. We start talking about other bands and things just start falling. I'm so busy working on so many things that I think the reason there's any memory loss for anybody is because you've got a hard drive carrying around here. And eventually it's so full, you add something to it and something's going to fall out the other side. Pink Floyd. That's the name I was looking for.
Pink Floyd, yeah.
Yeah. Who's the guitar player in that band? He's just one of the coolest guitar players.
I'm drawing a blank too.
Gilmore, I think, is his last name.
David Gilmour.
David Gilmour. Thank you. His note choices. He's not trying to prove anything to anybody. He's just playing melodies, and they just the tone. He's in no hurry. The shake is nice and slow. Oh my God, he's just great. He's one of those. I mean, like I say, I've just sort of discovered a lot of different music in the last couple of years. I mean, usually I'm just so self-involved. My new song, I'm working on that. I'm not going to hear anything else. Don't want to do that. And I think probably because of the pandemic more than anything else, I'm rediscovering Tchaikovsky, Beethoven, AC/DC, Foo Fighters. I mean, all this cool music, and a handful of blues artists that I don't even know who they are that are kicking. There's a lot of good stuff out there.
Sound on the album as well. There's some bluesy guitars happening in there.
Yeah. That's me mostly. It's because that's about all I'm going to get for you.
Yeah.
I don't. If I try to play along the lines of some of these guys that I just bow down to, like such monsters, I'll just, I'll go face first into the stucco wall. You know what I mean? That ain't going to work. I'm better if I just try. If I can sing it, then I can play it. You know what I mean? That's the way I look at it. Just try to keep them funky, but not too many chops. Keep the chops to a minimum. I'm not the guy that has that many chops. Somebody said, hey, as a guitar player, you make a good organist. As an organist, I make a good guitar player. Oh, what the hell? I can sing. I mean, I did sessions at one point where we were doing a session for somebody. I can't remember what the project was, but I said, let me see the chart. I took it to the piano and kind of went through what was going on just so I could figure out how we could voice the vocals. And he said, I didn't know you played piano. I said, every singer that I ever brought in for sessions, all of them were keyboard players. Rich Page, Michael McDonald, Bobby Kimball, Tom Kelly. They all can play keyboard and guitar too. So it's that way when you say, well, this is what we're going to do, and this is where we're going to do it, everybody knows what I'm talking about because they got that keyboard stamped across their head. You know what I mean? It's helpful to have that. Somebody said, hey, what should my kids start playing? Trumpet, piano, always. If you get piano, the rest of them will come like that. If you get piano kind of under your hands and get a certain eyeball on theory, you'll have a better time learning any instrument.
That's my understanding.
Yeah. Yeah. All that theory is basically already in your, which applies to every instrument. But if you learn it on piano, you got the first half of learning the other instrument done. You know what I mean? So I think it makes a lot of sense. I wanted to just play guitar. I'm sorry. I liked Elvis. Give me that guitar. I wasn't very good at it, but eventually I got back into it and started to play it more.
Well, and like you say, you can only be good at anything you're doing is to just keep at it.
Yeah. Yeah. Just spend as much time at it. Like songwriting. When I first started, I would sit at my piano all week long and just play and write and write and write and write, do nothing but writing because I was new to it. And the best thing I knew how to do, rather than asking somebody how to do it, was to learn how myself. And I writing everything. If I managed to get a bridge out of the 40 songs I wrote this week, it was worth it. You know, just one bridge. That's all I'm asking for. But I'm going to go through all of this stuff, write all these lyrics, throw them all away. They all suck. But that little thing right there worked out great. You know, I'm going to find a place to put that as a bridge in something, you know. So I have a tendency to write in chunks, I think they would call it. You know, you write this thing here. And then, you know, I usually don't, if I'm writing a song, I'll rarely write the bridge down here in the living room where we're writing it. I'll get to the bridge when I'm you know, programming it, putting it together at the thing, because at that point of the game I got some drums going, I got a loop or something carrying me forward and going, and now this might be kind of nice to go here. So you find on the record that some of the bridges kind of go to different places, which I think is great. It's like just another song, you know.
Right.
You know, I did one years ago where I had a guitar player come in to play, and I had written these changes for the guitar solo to play over, you know, like jazz guys, you know, they play over changes, you know. And he said, man, is there any you got anything that just sits in A, you know, so I can just do a pentatonic? And I said, no, you just got to learn how to do this. I'll talk you through it. He ended up getting one of the better solos of his career. But you had to spend a little more time with it. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know, just some things, if you got changes, kind of hard to jam over if you got to know when to change accidentals and that kind of thing. That's why Al Jarreau was so great. He wasn't really much of a reader or anything like that. But no matter what you did here, he knew how to change his accidentals on the spot. He was just instant. If you did a key change, he knew exactly what to do and how to do it, without even thinking about it, without even learning about it. It's just one of those natural things. I miss Al. He's a sweetie pie. He's a nice guy.
Yeah, that was a big loss.
Great singer, really great singer. You know, I loved him. I did a lot of sessions with him over at Graydon's house. We always had a ball doing backgrounds on Jarreau stuff. He wasn't always there, but sometimes he would just be just a hang. You know, he's just such a good hang. Good guy. I mean, one of my favorite drummers, Tristan Bowden, played with Al a lot.
Right.
You know, George Hawkins played with Al a lot too. All these guys that Kiki Ebsen played with Al a lot. You know, but Jarreau was a piece of work, man. He hit the stage and there was good players on the stage with him. So it really just kind of brought everything up. It's like what you were saying before, the audience getting you off. I've always had a problem with these in-ear monitors.
Right.
Where they make sense, you know, in so many ways they make sense. A lot of people say I sing more in tune. I wouldn't be sure about that. You know, some singers, you remember when you got your first, say you're in earphones and you got your first Walkman and you had it really loud, and at the end it's fading, but it sounds like it's going down, sort of a Doppler effect. What it is that when it's loud, that close, without any air around it, it's sharp. So if you're singing in tune with what you're hearing, you're singing sharp.
Right.
So that's one of the things that I found out with those things. So people have to kind of learn how to use them a little differently. Some do quite well. But another thing is that if you're doing them all the time and you got the same mixer and everything else, you begin to see what you want to hear and what you don't want to hear. So, I mean, I know I did them for about a year with Chicago. And during that period of time, I set my rhythm guitar, you know, Keith's rhythm guitar level at a certain level. But because of that, I didn't hear his solos. Now, you're doing speakers and there's leakage on the stage and there's monitors and all that. You hear his solo and he's having a great night, you have a better night. You play a great solo and he hears it, he has a better night. With these machines, after a while, it starts to get where people are doing, I know at some level, there's a series of click tracks, duets with click tracks. You know, or duets with the drummer.
Right.
You're not hearing what this guy's doing, so you're playing, and you're not allowing yourself to go up in steps. That's what I really love. One of the things I love about playing live. And it means that you probably got a sound check every day, but you know that's how it goes. Right. You know, I don't think we sound checked more than once every couple of years. You know, we had the same, monitor mixer, so everything was pretty cool. We didn't really need to.
Yeah.
We'd go down to sound check if we needed to put a new song in or needed to rehearse or something. And at that point in the game, you go, I need a little more guitar or something. But most of the time, you just go play it however it is. And what you're doing is each guy's performing, and this goes away. And it's just kind of, I don't know. That's one of the things. Might have been one of the things that I was just like, this is not the thing that playing live together, everybody being together on it. That's not what makes that happen. It kind of pushes it away from that. So I don't know.
Right.
It's just one man's opinion. as I'm wearing earphones, but that's just because my speakers are blowing on my laptop.
Right.
Probably try to run a bass through it. I don't have any more amps. Well, just run it through your speakers. That's what they sound like. So they can't sound good. I'm cool with that.
Was there any time in your career where you were just wowed by who you were in the same room with at one point in your life?
So I had one thing. The Sons were third lining. It was the billing was Yardbirds, B.B. King, and the Sons.
Wow.
And we had a deal with the promoter. It was at Shrine Auditorium in Los Angeles. We had a deal with the promoter that BB could use our Hammond organ, and their organ player would put his bass pedals in. And that was when BB was playing with organ and bass pedals, 2 horns and a drummer, and him on guitar. It was great. It was totally great. We blew a fuse after our first set.
Oh no.
And couldn't do it. So, we're going, we sent somebody out for a fuse, but I don't think there was a Radio Shack within a good little while it was open. I mean, we ended up getting one before we had to use it, before our next set and his next set. But this next set, the promoter comes and says, BB needs a bass player. And my bass player, Al, goes over to get his bass. He had an Ampeg fretless bass. Luckily, it had dots. Plus I took string bass in orchestra when I was in high school. So I kind of knew positions and knew how to use it pretty well. And I went over to Al and said, Al, have you ever heard of B.B. King? He said, no. I said, can you name me one B.B. King song? He said, no. I said, give me that. So I went down, I played a set with B.B. King.
Wow.
On bass. It's not even my instrument, basically. Right. But I was playing with Sonny Freeman on the drums, and wow. I mean, it was a giant lesson in where the shuffle's supposed to sit. I should have paid him for doing. BB paid me $10. He's the sweetest guy. He was the nicest guy in the world. I just loved him. We went backstage afterwards and hung out with him and hung out with the guys in the band. And they were all, hey man, Bill, you did a good job. Everything's fine, man. And then later on, we did our set, and then he did his set with Duke. Jethro was the organ player, great pedal player. Great pedal player and a good organ. And because with BB, the way he played, he didn't need the biggest band in the world to come across, No. And just organ and pedals, keeping simple, a couple of horn players, a sax and trumpet, and that great drummer, perfect,
Sometimes less is more.
Especially when you sing like BB King. Everybody talks about his guitar playing. I think he's one of the better singers. I mean, him and Little Milton, ZZ Hill. There's a handful of blues singers that I really loved, and BB was one of them. He just sang so cool. His phrasing at the end of a thing would carry over into letter A again.
Right.
And you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And it would just carry over, and then he'd pick up the verse, and he'd just catch up with himself. It's just so good. It's so cool. And he was so great with an audience. He just owned them. Just get on the stage and he owned them. He was just such a gregarious, wide open, happy human being. I just loved playing. To me, that was like one of the biggest moments of my whole career. It kicked ass on getting Grammys. You know what I mean?
Yeah. How nervous were you being up there?
I wasn't. I just went, I gotta help this guy out, and I know Al couldn't do it. Al never had any idea how BB's songs went. And I knew I had a better pocket. So I just went, Al, give me that. Let me do this. I'll take care of it. He was very good. He could have said, no, I'll do it. He just said, okay, yeah, you take it. You go ahead. I don't know the guy. I've never heard of the guy. Al was kind of jazz guy more so, and I was paying attention to blues. I mean, Albert King was one of my big influences on guitar.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I mean, I kind of learned a lot of guitar, a lot of blues, and a lot of how to shake the note and stuff from Albert King. But you listen closely to like the Born Under a Bad Sign album, the rhythm guitar that Steve Cropper played was it was a manual of how to play rhythm guitar.
Mm.
To this day, I'll be putting a rhythm part down and I'll go, what would Cropper do right here? I mean, I know Steve, he's a good friend, but he was just at a certain period of his career, he played such cool, kind of ignorant but cool rhythm guitar parts that just fit stuff really well, and it felt really, really just useful. I mean, uh, some of the stuff, some of the rhythm he played. There was a song called "The Hunter" on Albert's "Born Under a Bad Sign" album, and the rhythm guitar on it is, it's at the top of the heap. I don't think anybody's ever played as good as that. Plus, he produced it.
Yeah.
Cropper was a serious bit of work, man. That guy was amazing.
I got to see Stevie Ray Vaughan just a couple of weeks before his tragic plane crash.
And he was already sober. He was doing great.
He was.
Yeah, and
So
wow, what an energetic player. I mean, I heard one thing one time. I was in tears. I mean, I think it was John Hammond Sr. was introducing him at Carnegie Hall, and he just hit with an instrumental that had so much energy. It was just like Carnegie Hall didn't know what hit it. Just wham! And Stevie and it was just three guys.
I know.
Yeah, just scary good. How good it was. I just go, well, man. And the licks, the notes that he plays, and the licks that he plays, a million guys can do it. But I mean, that guy, when he soloed, I mean, he said more with one note than most people say with 5 or 6 albums.
Exactly.
I mean, he told stories when he played. It was just so great. When he went into, he's in a solo mode and he's playing a rhythm thing while he's soloing. It's just, well, just, tears are coming out of my eyes. It's like, wow, this guy's great. What a cool guy. I met him one time just for a minute.
Right.
And it was, what was really cool is I met him and Tamara and I were in Florida at Criteria singing backgrounds on Don Johnson's record, right?
Don Johnson's record.
Yeah. I mean, Don's a nice guy. It was actually a pretty good record. Chaz Sanford was our close friend and co-writer and co-producer, produced some stuff for Chicago at one point. And Chaz was producing Don's record. So I was there hanging out. I walk in, there's Whoopi Goldberg, Stevie Ray Vaughan, and Chaz.
Oh.
I don't even think Don was there at the moment. So I, met him, and I met Stevie Ray Vaughan. Says my wife Tamara. He says, "Oh, you guys are married. That's cool. Marriage. When you find a woman you despise and buy her a house." I said, "Oh, well, okay, Stevie. Thanks a pant load." But his SRV guitar was sitting on a stand out in the studio. I said, "You mind if I take a whack?" I said, "Sure, man. Go listen to it. Go play it." His strings were so heavy that I think he had a wound G. And I tried to bend it. I couldn't even bend it a quarter tone. Really? It was, and he would bend it a major third. He could do. I couldn't bend it at all. I mean, these strings were so heavy. One of the reasons why his tone was so giant.
Because he had such thick
and different levels of amplifiers. I mean, he usually used a couple of Bassmans, or tweed Bassman things, and I mean, I've heard stories of all kinds of railroading millions of different amps in the studio to get it just dead on perfect, whatever. But I went right around the time I think he'd done Little Wing or something, where he was playing really cool guitar, and I realized that he was bending like a major third, and I went, on that same guitar? You gotta be kidding. Now, after he passed away, I was hanging out with his drummer, who I keep forgetting his name, and he's a really good drummer, great shuffle.
Fantastic drummer.
Yeah, he's a sweetie pie, nice guy. I said, man, and I told him a story about playing the guitar, and I said, man, he must be so strong. It's unbelievable. He says, not really, man. He had little arms like that. Well, it didn't work out or anything. He was just passionate, and the harder the strings were, the less chance he had of ripping them right off the neck. So, and he just said that, because he'd asked him about it himself when Stevie was alive, and it was just pretty crazy. He said, yeah, that way he could just get way into it, and he wouldn't, try to bend a note, a whole tone, and end up bending it an octave, or something insane. Whoops, gone, So, and then that was one of the reasons why his tone was just insane great, just really good, especially for rhythm. I mean, you're putting the full bandwidth of sound that the guitar gives you through the amp, Pretty cool.
It was quite something to see him.
Yeah. Yeah, he's amazing. He's really, really cool.
Yeah.
You know who's kicking? I mean, everybody talks about Joe Bonamassa, and I love him. I think he's absolutely great and writes really good stuff. But what's his name? Oh God, left-handed black blues player, and I just had it in my head a half a second ago. It just went away. It'll come back to me in about 2 minutes, I guarantee you. But
there's another memory coming in 2 minutes.
There's another one coming in 2 minutes. God,
not Robert Cray, right?
No, Robert's good. Robert's really cool. Robert's a little cleaner sound, which I think that's sort of his personalized license plate. Yeah. There's a handful of great guys out there. I mean, I think the blues is waking up to remaining the blues, but it doesn't have to sound like an old record. I mean, people are doing some really close. Gary Moore his tone was insane.
Gary Moore,
just beautiful tone. Just one of those guys that, boom. Why are you so damn good? Eric Gales is the guy I was looking for.
Oh, Eric Gale. Okay.
Yeah. He's because there's another guitar player, Eric Gale, that played on Grover Washington's records and stuff. He had really kind of a cool rhythm thing. But Eric Gales I heard his version of Voodoo Child the other day, and I went, holy smokes. But the thing about him is he's carrying a little more of that same kind of Stevie Ray energy. It's just, boom, here it comes. It's all coming to you in a giant locomotive coming at 60 miles an hour. Get off the tracks or you're going to be hurt, and he's one of my favorites. I just love his playing and singing. He's a great singer. So it's just another guy with a trio that just tears the shit out of it. It's like one of the guys that, and I don't know, I just really I'm always amazed and really just knocked when somebody can, especially with that small a band, when somebody can just tear it up at that level. It's just great.
Yeah.
Really great.
Well, Rush was good for that too. I was a big Rush fan.
Insane. Just so good.
Such playing that those three had together.
Yeah, Jason Sheff's been doing some shows with a guitar player from Rush, and there was a benefit out here, and he got in there and was playing. I don't know who's on drums, but Jason was playing bass and singing Geddy stuff.
Oh wow!
And he was doing really a good job, and the guitar player was playing it the way he plays it. And I went backstage. I hadn't seen Jason in a while. I said, "So how long was the wood shedding for this one?" He says, about a week of hard shedding. That must have been fun rather than going out and singing 25 or 6 to 4 again, So, he said, yeah, I had to really dig in to catch all Geddy's bass parts and vocal parts at the same time. So yeah, Rush was amazing. They were sometimes you go, some things should be on a government grant. Toto, Steely Dan. I mean, there's such good musical stuff going on. There's a handful of relatively new guys. I mean, Dirty Loops. You hip to those guys?
No.
Dirty Loops? Dirty Loops, like belt loops.
Yeah.
Check them out. They're insane. They're really, really good. I mean, they signed a Verve at one point when David Foster was the president of Verve. And then I think they were working with Quincy now, but they're an amazingly great band. I mean, it's a trio. The keyboard player is playing on the videos. He was playing a keyboard about this big. I was going, he must have been lazy. It must have been lazy. Just pull that keyboard out. It turned out, I saw him do a live showcase here in LA, and he played that on the thing. I said, "You're doing those solos? He sounds like Herbie Hancock. I mean, wow. He plays like that, and then he sings like Stevie Wonder.
Wow.
And he's a Swedish guy.
Great.
Unbelievable, and the bass players around the bend, I was watching him play. I was standing next to Nathan East, one of the top bass players in the world, and Heinrich was doing something on the bass, and I said, you catch that? He says, I said, what's that? He says, I have no idea. He said, this guy's insane great, and they make it all just fit together like a glove. Just Google them, Dirty Loops, and you'll find all kinds
All right.
of YouTubes and stuff. And
I'll say that Bill sent me.
yeah. Well, there was a first time I saw one, they were doing a Britney Spears cover.
Oh, wow.
But they had rearranged it so much that I couldn't tell. I mean, I didn't even know. I probably had never even heard the song that they were covering, but my God, was it great, and then it's just gone on and on and on from there. So kind of check out their earlier YouTube stuff, and it's insane how good they are. There's another guy that just started showing up out of nowhere, Jacob Collier. You hip to him?
No.
Check this guy.
You want to notes?
Oh man, check this guy out. Relatively young guy. I think he's English, maybe, or he might be from somewhere. He doesn't speak with a usual American accent. I don't even know where he's from, but I think he's from England. And the first time I saw him, he was doing a version. He did it in his, I guess, right at his house or his dorm or wherever the hell he was working. He seemed like he was a music student of some level. But you had the same boxes, but he was singing all in the background, and it was Stevie Wonder, Don't You Worry About a Thing. And his substitutions and his voicings and how he made it all work, just a cappella. And then, boom, it breaks into a band, and he's playing bass. It might actually be upright bass. He's playing bass, organ, all the different drums, vibes, you name it.
Wow.
And you want to shoot the guy. He's so damn good. Oh, my God. You just go, whoa, where did this guy come from? Check it out. I mean, I think you really like it. It's just, and he with loop pedals and everything, he's learned to play it live. He can do it live, do all his stacking, and just build it up right there on the stage in front of the whole audience. It's just insane, these young kids. Esperanza Spalding is another one that came out of nowhere. For a while, I was just going, music seems to have gone into how you look, video stuff seemed to be running the show. And suddenly I said, jazz is gone, R&B is kind of almost gone. It's all hip hop and stuff. And then along comes some of these artists that you just go, whoa, here comes a whole new group of people that are going to really pretty much save whole genres of music single-handedly. It's really cool to see. I mean, I was kind of wondering there for a while. I mean, my son's a monster. He's a Berkeley grad. He was a finalist in one of the seasons of The Voice. Will Champlin, bad to the bone. Check him out. You can go online, just Google him, and you'll hear some stuff. He's crazy. He's bad to the bone. There's some young musicians that aren't really getting the attention that they probably should, that are just great. I mean, it's so cool to hear stuff. I mean, I think the music in general has been, in a lot of ways, handed, in some cases, been handed to people that are looking to use music as a stepping stone to a movie career. And then there's people that are musicians. I kind of lean toward the people that are musicians, you know what I mean? And that's kind of what's going on. I mean, there's some good stuff out there. And I think mine's some of it. I mean, I think a lot of people don't know who I am would probably go, well, there's this new artist. Yeah. How new are you? I don't even want to go into it.
That happened a couple of years ago with Paul McCartney. Remember when he did I forget who it was. Wasn't it some new up and coming artist, and Paul had let him come on to his song, and then the song got out and everybody thought Paul McCartney was a new artist.
Yeah. Well, Chicago went through that. At one point, a lot of their audience thought that Chicago 16 was their first album. It was their first album with David Foster. So, I mean, that kind of brought the band into at least what people wanted to see and hear in the 90s. And Cetera was, he was good looking, great singer. Yeah. In shape, exercising like crazy, no more drinking, no more drugs. On the case, I mean, him and David just ran away with it. So, I mean, some people do think that 16 was the first album. It wasn't. It's the 16th album. So, I mean.
But here's another thing. A lot of people and a lot of the young generation are doing these reaction videos now, and a lot of them are looking up. And I've seen a lot of them for Chicago. A lot of these kids that are they're finding Chicago for the first time.
Right.
And
that's cool stuff.
Yeah.
You know, over the years, it's been cool stuff. I mean, the early stuff was really good. What I've, you know, I mean, when Terry Kath passed away, I mean, 2 days later, I got the call, hey, you want to take this gig? And I went, I don't play, I'm not that good a guitar player. I mean, I'm good, but not to the point of being able to hold this thing down for, 2 hour set. That ain't gonna happen. It's just not. I got one good solo. Count them. One. It's like I got a good ear for music. Count them. One. you know. But so I pass on it, and then later on, they said, "Well, we've got a sideman playing guitar." It was Chris Pinnick, who was a monstrous guitar player, and we want you really kind of to sing the Terry Kath stuff. But when I heard the band earlier on, I was really knocked out by Kath, his guitar playing and his singing, and I was knocked out by Cetera right off the bat. I mean, he said that's a voice that's the voice of the ages, man. That guy's just God gave him a beautiful set of pipes, and he really sounds gorgeous. He always has. It's just who he is,
Yeah.
And then I just started paying a little more attention, having to learn all this stuff. He's a great bass player too. I mean, that's one of the things that having the Beatle channel on satellite radio, I've begun to realize that from the get, Paul McCartney was playing great bass. He's a great bass player. I think if there were no Beatles, he would have probably been a session guy playing bass on everybody's records.
Right.
He's kind of, for that era, he was kind of what Mark King has been for the last era. And Mark's the singer, one of the singers and bass player for Level 42. Really good bass.
Yes.
Monstrous bass player, great singer too. I mean, Level 42 is one of my favorite bands for a long time. And man, they were just every record they put out, and then some of them didn't go as well as the first one, but didn't sell as well as the first one. But hey, it's a success to me because the music's a bad boy. I mean, they're really a cool band, well thought out, really well written stuff.
Know, it's hard to get an album out at all, let alone if it's good or bad, regardless of sales.
Well, at this point, they were really lucky with that first tune that they had. They had a video that was playing a lot, and that really got things moving a little bit. I don't think the video situation. I don't know how it is in Canada, but MTV plays videos all the time, but I don't. For some reason, don't find myself watching them very much.
Well, people can just go to YouTube and do a reaction to it now.
I really like Tchaikovsky. Great voicings, beautiful orchestrations, Wow. Who wants to hear about that? Okay, I like AC/DC. People go, I was talking to a young kid that was actually a rapper when my son was in high school. He was over at the house at one point, and I said, well, a lot of the stuff that you're doing was really kind of, it wasn't ripped off, but it was, had these other bands not happen. I don't think you'd be in a situation where you are at this point of the game. And I said, Sly and the Family Stone and Earth, Wind and Fire. And he didn't know who I was talking to. He had no idea who I was talking about.
Yeah.
He was really young. He kind of got into music when Puff Daddy was doing stuff.
Oh, yeah.
My son Will came home from school one day and said, man, this Puff Daddy stuff is really great. And I said, play it. So he played the thing for me. And what it was I think they had taken an Isley Brothers tune and taken 2 bars of the groove and looped it.
Stuff
and they were sampling. And I said, okay, well, and he said, man, everybody's digging this. Everybody's digging this. I said, come here. So I went and found wherever my old LPs were, found the Isley Brothers record that was sampled from. I still had a turntable at the time in my studio. I put it on. I put on the song, hit the button for the turntable to show up. And Will went, whoa, you mean people play things for more than 2 bars? But he all of a sudden, in that 1 second of just listening to that record from the top to bottom, he went, oh, I see. He didn't know before.
Yeah. I did that with my son too, because he's like, oh, Dad, and he goes, listen to this song. And I picked it up right away, and he goes, how did you know that? I go, because I've heard that song before. That's not their song, but they're taking credit for that song.
Well, they're most likely paying royalties to the writer, I would hope.
Yeah.
If not, they're gonna have an attorney minuet coming up. Lil' Kim did a version of she used just a certain section of "Turn Your Love Around," which is a song that me and Jay Graydon and Steve Lukather wrote for George Benson.
Right.
And they just used a little bit of it, but they gave us 50% of the writing.
Oh.
you know.
Nice.
So that was really cool. I mean, I don't even want to tell you what the title was that she wrote on it because it's just filthy.
No,
Luke,
not Lil Kim. No, not Lil Kim.
not Lil Kim. Yeah, Luke or Jay called me up in the middle of the night. I guess he was at his house in Cambridge. He called up and said, "Here's your new title," and hit me. He said, "Well, I heard the title and I asked Luke about it. Luke said, you played it for Bill yet?" He said, "I'm going to play it tonight." So he called me up and just told me about it. I went, "We still getting paid?" He said, "Yes."
Good.
I don't care what they call it.
As long as we're getting paid.
As long as we're getting paid, we're cool, you know. And they told him, he said, "I'd like to get more than 50% of this." And I guess the record company that was putting it out said, "If you start asking for more, you're going to get people knocking on your door. You don't want knocking on your door." He said, "Okay, I think I got the drift. I think I'll stick with a 50% and we'll be fine."
Yeah.
You know? It's just the biz, you know. It
Yeah.
just at some point in the game it got kind of nutty, you know, and it always has been, really.
Right.
Think about it. I mean, when there's kind of very little rhyme or reason. I mean, I realized years ago that everything that gets in the top 10, there's a certain point, and from the writing of it to the releasing of it and radio play of it, somewhere in there's a fluke.
Mm.
You know, of just a thing that just a lucky thing that happens. And that's just what happens to almost every hit that's out there. There's a fluke factor.
Yeah.
Once you get that kind of visibility, then people go crazy and they go, "Wow, this is beautiful." I talked to a friend of mine, Bob Brown, was a manager for Pablo Cruz and later on for Huey Lewis and the News. And he's not doing any of that right now, but he said, "Man, they had Pablo Cruz's 'What You Gonna Do?'" And they were kind of going, "Well, I don't see this as a good song for you guys to have out." He said, "Yeah, it is. Put it on send it to the R&B stations, and the R&B stations are the ones that got that one started."
Oh.
And then people realized they were a bunch of white kids from Marin County, California, and San Francisco Bay Area. They went, "Wow, let's go with that." You know what I mean? So, but I mean, what it got us started was basically R&B radio. So,
Wow.
I mean, and there's your fluke. There's
Yeah.
your kind of like, well, you kind of stumble into success backwards sometimes, it seems like. And I've heard so many stories of things that flew that you didn't think were gonna, and boom, there they are. You know, Macarena seems to come to
Yeah.
mind.
That was a
96 Tears comes to mind. You know, there's a handful of things that come to mind. You know, I mean, look at Bobby McFerrin with "Don't Worry, Be Happy." That thing was through the roof. But that was one of those hits that's going to be your first and last. You know, because up to that point, he was ridiculous. He's one of the best singers on the earth. That whole thing is all him. That's all voice.
Yeah.
There's not an instrument near that. It's all him stacking all that up. And he just did it as a joke, kind of as a joke.
But then you have the cheaters of the world, the Milli Vanillis of the world. You know.
You know, nowadays nobody cares. You know,
Yeah, I know. That's the sad thing.
everybody's performing with Pro Tools. It's just the way it is now.
Yeah.
It's on the big gigs. I mean, people that you never thought would need that. But you know, it's nice to have a little extra vocal in there, and nice to have a little extra horn part in there. It makes everything sound double, the way it was on the record.
Right.
Problem is, the minute you see somebody, you know, singing lead when it's actually on the track, and they miss it. You know, they miss the lip sync, and you go.
That happened on Saturday Night Live. I forget the performer, but she walked off stage
Oh,
because the sync was out.
Was the sister Ashley Simpson, maybe?
It was Ashley Simpson, yes.
Yeah. How's that? I'm forgetting everything but that. You know what I mean? Wow, good, Bill.
But she was.
Yeah, I mean,
she just dropped the mic and walked off the stage.
Yeah, it's kind of a mistake like that can be a pretty bad thing. I mean, your career hard to make it go faster. I know that one of the guys from Milli Vanilli had a you know, he was, you know, they were they weren't real popular for a little while there. They weren't able to really get anything going in their career, which before had been pretty good. And yeah, they didn't sing it. Somebody else did, but they performed it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't like that necessarily, but believe me, it's a lot more rampant than just that one group. That's for sure.
Right.
You know, people are doing it better now than they used to. People, for a while, people were doing DAT copies. Somebody was at a Milli Vanilli gig where the DAT tape broke,
Oh,
and they didn't have another one that could come in right at that absolute exact same second. So,
right.
you know, and somebody was saying, man, they were throwing shit around. They were going really crazy. Well, how'd you let that? You left us out there, you know, hanging. Well, maybe you should have spent more of your time learning how to do this. You know,
Right.
I really believe everybody who's born is born to sing, and a lot of people have taught themselves not to, or have been taught not to. You know, I think the melody and voicing it, except for the rare person that really does have a tin ear, I think the melody and the voicings that just make it work. You know, those things are there. I think people just have them. A friend of mine just put out an album, a guy named Gordon Campbell put out an album. And there's a little piece in the album where he's taped teaching his I think it's his daughter or son, really young kid. Here's the lick. Da, 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 and the kid's going da, 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 da. So you're watching this stuff being passed.
Right.
It was really, really cool. It was like a poignant little moment in his album. It's a great album, but that was a nice little moment. You know, it's just, wow, listen to this little kid. He's getting it pretty damn close. You know, we're getting there.
Bill, I've taken up a lot of your time. It was supposed to be all, I was told
Cool.
it was supposed to be a half hour, and we've gone an hour and a half.
Well, there you go. That's how it is, man. It's fun hanging with you, man. I'm glad we could. I mean, just you can cut. I mean, it's like an engineer friend said to me, the razor blade's still the best EQ in town. That was really a cool thing.
No,
But
I'm
yeah,
really
just cut it up. Grab what you want out of it. I know we're probably supposed to be talking about the album, but I get to talking about music, and I just start going, you know, and just because it just and there's a line of one of I think it was on the song Higher, it was Sly and the Family Stone. This is and I think it's something Rosie sings, is music still flashing me. And you know, flashing you is, you know, getting you off. I mean, that was
yeah.
that you know, jargon from that period. Music still flashing me. I want to take you high. Boy, did that take off, you know. Yeah. Those
Well, and I
guys.
was fortunate too because I grew up. My mother was a big lover of music. She listened to classic. She would listen to Joan Baez, Pete
Cool.
Seeger,
Yeah.
you know, and then the rap stuff started coming in. I started listening to that. Then the alternative, the grunge.
Yeah.
You know, you know, I just really appreciate all forms of music, but I
Yeah.
really appreciate your time today.
You know, it's funny. My oncologist is such a music fan that he'll be at the Los Angeles Symphony one night and in a mosh pit the next, because he just digs all kinds of music. He's a sweetie pie.
Yeah.
Really turned into a really good friend. You know, I mean, I got his. How often do you have the cell phone number of your doctor? You know, it's pretty rare move. But you know, we're on a first name basis and everything's pretty cool. But you know, I introduced him to Michael McDonald, and that knocked him out. You know.
I bet.
You know, I mean, that right there is, you know, I've seen that guy. I mean, I've worked with him off and on over the years. I've seen that guy on a microphone just turn it into gold. Just, and he didn't even know what he did. He didn't know, you know, I don't know what that is. Maybe I could put one a little more familiar sounding. Is it? No, that's staying. I've never heard that lick from anybody before. That's staying on there. I mean, that's the kind of musician he is. He's so good. He's a great piano player too. And his wife, Amy's, boy, that's a really great singer right there. I mean, what a family. Anyway, I'm probably taking more of your time, just, you know, going off like crazy.
No, it's quite an honor that you spent so much time with me. And I won't
thanks,
talk this up. I think what we talked about is relevant in all aspects. And it's like,
cool.
What would I take out? What could I possibly take out?
Oh yeah. 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, whatever. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, like I usually tell people, say, hey, if I'm going on too long, stop me. Like I get into that thing where I just suddenly I'm on a path somewhere lost in the woods. You know,
it's great to hear all of your experiences though.
Yeah,
and we did talk about the album. You thanked Shauna and all the people at the label for pushing it as much as they have.
They've been really, really sweet. It's been really great. You
Yeah.
know, and once again, just to overshoot the mark, I've the it's available digitally just about everywhere, wherever digital is sold. And if you like CDs, just give a shout to billchamplin.com and you're
Yeah,
there.
I prefer physical media myself. I still buy DVDs and Blu-rays.
Yeah.
The streaming stuff is kind
We're
of
talking about maybe doing a double vinyl album because vinyl is getting to be pretty popular again. So just
yes.
think of that cover on something this big. Wow, it'd be really sweet. Really
And
nice
then you
looking.
could really go old school and put in the where the album is, you could put a fold up poster of the album cover, like they used to, and you hang them on their wall.
It's a good idea. Yeah, we get Vladimir to knock one off for us. We can get that. I mean, I can't tell you how much I love this guy's artwork. He's just amazing. And he was nice enough to license it to us to let us use it.
Nice.
So we had to make sure we didn't just use it. We had to make sure that we were cool with it. That he was cool with it. But
Yeah.
it didn't cost a fortune. He was nice enough to let us do it. Cool guy. Anyway, here we go again, man. Anthony, thank you so much for having me, and thanks
Thank you, Bill.
for helping people know that it's available and how it's available.
You're welcome. I will provide the links in the article, and I will send it to Shauna.
Cool.
She will hopefully forward it to you.
Oh, she does every day.
Awesome. Take care.
Great hanging with you. Be good.
You too.
See you
Take care.
soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.